Hello and welcome. Hi, everyone. How are we all doing today? Good. It's actually really bright, so I know that you can see me, but I can barely see you all, so I might move. But I saw a few people nodding, so I know that you're all feeling good. How's day one been? Yeah, good, okay, I'm glad. So I hope that we get to make it better for you. So just want to check we're all in the right room. We're all here to hear about this. Too late, they're closing the doors, so irrespective, you're going to be with us for the next hour. So just by way of introduction, my name is Tolu, and as you'd see on the slide, I'm the person in the middle. I go by the pronouns she and her, and I am one of our global inclusion, diversity, and equity customer engagement leaders. And as we go through the rest of the session, you'll find out a bit more about what that actually means. I'm joined here today with Shyla Martinez, our head of global community activations, and I'm also joined here by Pat as well, and you'll hear more about Pat, who's the director of Basics International. But I'll save the goodies for later. So this is who we are. These are our wonderful pictures. So if you know anything about Amazon and AWS, you would know that a lot of what we do rides on our leadership principles. Familiar with that? Have we all heard of this leadership principle before? Okay, so this is number 16, so one of our newest that came into effect at the end of last year. And it's called Success and Scale Brings Broad Responsibility. And for me, it's one of my favorites, if not the favorite, because everything we do as an inclusion team hinges on this one principle. And it's really about how we, as an organization, give back the more that we grow. So I'll read it for posterity, but then I'll also explain a bit more about it. So it says, we started in a garage, but we're not there anymore. We are big, we impact the world, but we're far from perfect. We must begin each day with a determination to make better, to do better, and to be better for our employees, our partners, and my favorite bit, the world at large. Leaders create more than they consume, and they always leave things better than how they found them. And I love that. If you think of inclusion, diversity, and equity, it's all summed up in that. How do we impact our teams, our organization, our communities, and actually as big and Miss Universe as it sounds, the world, right? How do we impact the world? And we'll talk more today about the work that we get to do with our customers, but then also with our community partners such as Pat, and trust me, it's some really exciting stuff. So I'll start off now by talking about the work that we do in our ID&E customer engagement team. And just for ease, I'll refer to inclusion, diversity, and equity as ID&E at some points. I might even say D&I, which is wrong, but forgive me. So when I say ID&E, I'm talking about inclusion, diversity, and equity. So in 2022, which is the year that we're currently in, these are some of the customers, and I mean just a pinch of the customers that we've been able to partner with in the ID&E space. And you're probably thinking, I'm familiar with ID&E when it comes to data and looking at your workforce and attracting, for a lot of the women in the room, a lot of the women in tech initiatives. But what has it got to do with customers? Success and scale. So as we get bigger, and as the likes of the customers on this screen get bigger, how do we amplify our impact to be a positive force for good for the world? So I could spend all of the time of today's session simply telling you about the kinds of events that we've done with C6 Bank, for instance, who are one of our Brazilian customers based in Latin America. And they reached out, and we had a really interesting program of activity around supporting people into tech who are disabled and who are from those kind of backgrounds. And we focused specifically on working with folks who had low or no vision. We could talk about that. We could talk about the likes of Disney or SRO, where we actually had some really strategic sponsorships to try and address underrepresentation in tech through money, because as they'd say, you put your money where your mouth is, but then also through mentoring and through more programming that will take place in 2023. We can talk about some of the conversations that we've had with executives at the top of the C-suite, with customers such as Fox, LexisNexis, at CloudReach, Ariva. And if anybody here is based in the UK, then Ariva Trains is a very popular train provider. So we've had very big conversations with executives from those organizations about how we can join up at an executive level to really push ID&E forward. I could tell you a bit about what we've done with the likes of Capital One, Sainsbury's, which is actually where I used to work, because a few people here are from the UK, because I recognize you, so I used to work at Sainsbury's. And then actually, we can talk about some of the things that we've done with the likes of, I'll pick another one, Johnson & Johnson, where we've been doing fireside talks with our leaders, our female leaders from AWS and female leaders from Johnson & Johnson, to also inspire the next generation of tech talent. And then my favorite, but I won't go into it all because we'll talk about it in the session, is Adobe. And we've done a suite of activity with Adobe in the States, in Romania, in Europe, in the UK. And that's the beginning of a strategic partnership where we start off with events, but then actually we're starting to now move into very strategic programming for 2023. So this is the kind of thing that we are doing with our customers. And like I said, this is just a pinch. So actually, if you are a customer in the room and you're excited or you're intrigued, then please also feel free to reach out. Our contact details will be available at the very end of the session. Promise we don't bite, so do reach out, and more than happy to share more about this work and how your organizations can also get involved. So yeah, how do we collaborate? So I've given you some examples, but how? What is the how? And we put things into 3 buckets. So if you know our team, we love a three-pronged approach. We love a 3-bucket. We put things into buckets. The first bucket is around thought leadership. So we know that when it comes to inclusion, diversity, and equity, there's a lot going on in this space. There's a lot of strands, a lot of narratives, and there's a lot of initiatives taking place. So one of the things that we want to do as AWS is to be a thought leader. We want to, throw the gauntlet down and have opinions. And we know especially, be honest, in the ID&E space, sometimes it does feel quite scary to have an opinion, if I'm being honest. But we want to have opinions. We want to shape narratives. We want to share our opinions with the broader world. So thought leadership is where we want to lean in. And we do that through executive engagement. But we also do that, like I said, through fireside chats, through panels, through discussions, through conferences such as this. And actually, here at reInvent, we're having a number of customer conversations with leaders to drive and to hone into that thought leadership. So that's our first bucket. The second bucket then looks at tech, so we are a tech business. So it's how do we start to amplify inclusion in the cloud? So today, and actually for the rest of the week, you'll be hearing more about AWS products, services, initiatives. You'll hear from the likes of Peter DeSantis. You'll hear from the likes of Adam himself. You'll hear from our leaders talking about what's coming up in 2023. But the question that we then ask, and we can all ask ourselves, both as a team, but here as customers, is how do we make sure that we embed ID&E into that? So when we launch new services, where's the ID&E? When we launch new products, where's the ID&E? And that's a very interesting, super new, so I don't have much to tell you, but super new space. And I'm hoping that by this time next year, we come back to reInvent and we get to tell you more about what we've done in that second bucket. But we've been having conversations. It's little things like, customers who are using Amazon Transcribe on some of their programming internally to make sure that they're having language inclusion. It's little things, but it's slowly but surely we're going to get there. And that's where we also look at partner solutions as well. We have a really big partner org led by Ruba, and actually we've been doing some really interesting scoping with our partners and their solutions. So the likes of, we just throw some names out there, ISVs, so they're partners and customers like Sage, for instance. How do we then start to look at what you're doing, what we're doing, and bring it all together? And then the last piece, which is actually the reason we're here today, is around our communities. So that's working with our nonprofits. And for anybody in the room, and you may be from a nonprofit customer, we have quite a thriving nonprofit business. We have over 5,000 customers who are nonprofits. And they're all people who are powering their work, their social mission, their global mission on AWS. So as a team, we partner with them and we say, how can we amplify the work that you're doing? We also then have customer sponsorships, and we have customers who partner in this work and who say, actually, I love what this organization is doing. I want to put my money into this work. I want to give my time through volunteering. I want to give my resources through, back-end programming. That's what we want to do. So that's another bucket. And it's really about how do we collaborate, how do we partner, and how do we support what our customers are doing, what our communities are doing, and what our leadership is doing as well. So that's a bit around what we do. But like I said, always happy to have more conversations to really dive deep. And that's another leadership principle, diving deep. I'll give a quick spotlight on Adobe just because it's probably not to have favorites and it's probably very risky to say that at reInvent, but one of my favorite customers. And actually we've done about 5 or 6 different activations with Adobe this year. And what you can see on the screen is actually a partnership with AWS and with Adobe using our Deep Racer program. Just before I go into any detail, are we all familiar here with the Deep Racer program? I'm seeing some nods, perfect. Some over here just so I can see through the light. Okay, we've seen a few nods. For anybody that's not familiar, the Deep Racer program is an AI and an ML based programming, and it teaches young people the principles and the fundamentals of AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning through gamification. So it's super fun. And actually, when you have the live events, you actually bring out the race car, you bring out the mats, you do all of that. You learn about AI and ML through racing. And when it's really tangible, it's really exciting, it's really fresh. That's an AWS product. And that's something that we ship, so to speak, globally. And Pat can talk a bit about what we did in Ghana with Deep Racer. But then we also then partnered with Adobe, who have a suite of creative software. So anybody here familiar with things like Photoshop, for instance? Premiere Pro. So those are the kind of things that Adobe offer. And we basically put together a series of programming where we could teach young people how to use Deep Racer and Adobe Creative to make some cool things happen. And what you can see over there is one of the cars. So team number 16, that was the car that they designed. And for them, it was all about how can they drive fast, but in the slow lane. And it was all about if you change the aerodynamics and you change the coding and the programming of the car, how can you stick to the rules of driving in the slow lane, but actually increase your speed, which sounds like an oxymoron. But that was some of the intelligence that they were testing through AI machine learning. Can our machine learn to just about push the barriers, but not go beyond the speed limit? And those are the kind of things that, if you're a driver, you generally tend to do. How do I stay just under the cusp while pushing the limit? My mum, whenever she sees me drive and she sees me go on green, she always sees me go on yellow, and she's like, yellow is not to go, yellow is to slow. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm still going to go on yellow. So it's how do you push the boundaries? And we're teaching young people to do that using AI and ML, using tech. So that's just some pictures from the day. And we've done a variety of events. We reached out to the Oakland School District as well, so the Department of Education was involved. And it was really significant to do that in Oakland because we know that 73% of the students in that entire school district, hundreds of students, come from very low income backgrounds and actually have really kind of bad socioeconomic odds stacked against them. We actually started off focusing on young girls because we actually knew that though young girls were signing up for tech-related courses, the retention was very low. And so we've started this work this year, and once again, I would love to come back next year and give you the data to say that actually, of the X amount of young girls that took part in this program, a year later, X amount are still doing it, a year later, and to continue to tell the story. So this is some of the work that we're doing, and we're doing it in collaboration with customers. When we come back next year, I'll be able to tell you about the sizable contribution that Adobe has made to that broader community by allowing them to also use Adobe Creative software for free. So this is some really exciting, some really fresh, some really fun work, and that's just one example. I'll also speak to you now a bit about our community customer hybrid, and then I'll obviously introduce Shaila and Pat as well to speak more about this. So Tajimly. Tajimly is one of our nonprofit customers that I told you about. And this was a really interesting way for us to do this work with an existing customer. So they're not on Adobe per se, they're a community-based customer who is a customer. And so actually we reached out to them and we said, we want to amplify your work. For anybody that's not familiar with Tajimly, they are a language-based app, and they provide language translation for refugees, immigrants, displaced people, and actually the people that work with them, social workers, lawyers, etc. And I remember we were talking to the CEO, Sarah, and she said to me, can you imagine what it's like when you turn up on the borders of a new country? You've been through a lot to get there, but no one can understand you, they don't speak your language, or you don't speak their language. And I think many of us here, we don't give a second thought about that. A lot of the work that we do when it comes to inclusion, diversity, and equity is about the internal stuff. We look at numbers, we look at data, but none of that can exist without the most fundamental inclusive kind of, thing, which is language. She said it's even the case that some folks don't even know how to interpret some of the forms that they have to sign. So actually, you fill in a form wrong, your application gets denied. You go back to the back of the queue. So this is actually quite life or death, not trying to be dramatic about it, but this is very life or death. And what they basically do is they connect the service users with volunteers. And we've launched an incredible partnership with them. And that's just another example of the way in which we are working with our customers to have that success and scale impact. So Tajimly is one example. So just to give you a bit about that, not to kind of say it all, and like I said, hopefully next year we get to come back with Tajimly, who unfortunately couldn't be with us this year, and we can talk about all the stuff that we've been doing in that space. So I know I've been talking at you probably for about 15 minutes because the timer said so. So what I'll now do actually is pause, and we'll now move into our next section, which is looking specifically at our global community activations. But before we do that, I want to play you a video. And the video is based on our 2022 Innovation Fund. And if you follow about Amazon, if you follow any kind of Amazonians on LinkedIn, you would have heard about our innovation fund, which is really when Amazon puts money down, AWS, we put money down, and we give out micro grants to our people, our builders who have passion projects, who have things that they're doing, who are helping to change the tech industry, and actually even broader in communities, focusing on addressing underrepresentation. So this is a financial commitment from AWS, and this is what it looks like.
AWS believes by matching passion with purpose, we have the opportunity to transform the lives of underrepresented global communities. Now in its second year, the AWS ID&E Innovation Fund is committed to empower more than 25 AWS employees to support minority-serving partnership projects. Team members around the world are delivering results and championing change through partnerships with social impact organizations. The possibilities are endless.
That's just a snippet. I'll now invite Shyla to come and take the stage.
Do you mind if I continue to sit?
Yes, it's inclusive, so you can do what you like.
These shoes, I don't think will allow everyone to cross the stage so easily. But welcome. My name is Shyla Martinez, and as Tolu mentioned, I'm the head of Global Community Activations for AWS ID&E. And what you just saw was the innovation fund that my team runs. We are super excited. The second year in a row that we were able to connect with our employees, listen to them, and support the organizations that they are most passionate about. So beyond the funding, we run alongside of them, right? And these are organizations that embody what we are about in ID&E. So very excited about that program. But also our work in general is around serving underestimated, underrepresented communities around the world. We create strategies specifically to drive disruption in social inequities, as well as create STEM pathways and engage diverse employee resource groups to foster a culture of inclusion, as you all can see on the screen there. But we really are focused on, like Tolu mentioned, threes, right? Exposure, access, opportunity. As we think about our programming, we're always looking to invite folks who just don't have a space yet in tech and don't really have access to STEM, right? Being able to bring them into the fold and looking at how do we do that. We don't just look at like employees that can just come in, right, to the company right now. We go back and say, what are the barriers? What can we do? How can we assist community partners like Pat who are already doing this work out in the community? And because we have so many employees around the world, how do we leverage them? How do we leverage their passions? How do we leverage their the loves and the talents that already exist with them? And so we really think about, providing barrier or trying to bridge the gap for like tech barriers. We work with our internal teams, such as like our training and certifications, to bring AWS Educate and Restart, other programming that we have internally. We also reach across like our organization and challenge our colleagues to get involved and to partner with us as well. And so we also, like I said, create opportunities for our employees, not just through the innovation fund, but also to just engage like with Tarjimly. That was a great example of a customer that's also a partner of ours, that we can leverage our employees around the world who will show up and provide translation services, provide interpretation services, provide local or language localization services, all of those things that the company today has to pay for. And we have the ability to give them the resources in a pro bono manner, right, to help to lessen the financial need, but also giving our employees an opportunity as well. So some of the organizations that we work with, some of our nonprofit partners, Basics International, like Pat, that we have here today. But we also look at, we're working with the Veterans Hall of Fame, the MLK Memorial Foundation, where year over year we kind of connect with them and get in the community handing out food, but also, doing activating employees to fill backpacks to give out to students who are in homeless shelters around the DMV area. Ignite Worldwide, an organization that's really focused on access for STEM or access for girls in STEM, like literally pushing STEM curriculum for girls into Title I schools so that the girls don't have to figure out how to, do extracurricular activities. And so we show up in these spaces with these partners like Deaf Kids Code, not just financially, because we know, as Tolu had mentioned, yes, you can give finances all day long. However, what can you do as an organization to truly impact and empower community organizations that are already out here doing the work, and then using strategic thinking and having real thought leadership around how we can support to expand. And so we do, we provide material resources and, we get donations and things from our devices organization. And so just in general, the thought process around the work that we're doing is not to come in and change what our community partners are doing. We're here to support, empower, and help scale out where we can the work that they are already doing and have been doing for years and that they're passionate about. And our lens is global, truly. We're always looking for partners that are around the world. Our employees sit around the world, our customers sit around the world, so our community partners and the communities that we serve should also represent those same demographics. So in the that last innovation fund, or the little kind of tease there, this last year we were able to actually support 28 projects, but over 14 different countries. And that's unheard of, second year, right? This is something we started as a pilot initiative because we were listening to our employees, and it has just the doors have blown wide open, and it's super exciting. And we are also looking for our customers to join us in these journeys.
Absolutely. Too soon. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shyla. And thank you for that call to action at the end. There'll be many calls to action for those that want to respond. So keep listening. But so thank you so much. And I know that we've had Pat here. We've teased you because I've referred to Pat, Shyla's referred to Pat. So now is your moment, Pat. I will now move us over to our next section. And this is probably a bit more different to some of the other breakouts you've been to. But we're now going to move into a bit more of a conversational fireside chat. So think of me as your compare, and then it'll be in conversation with Shyla and Pat. But first we'll start with Pat. So in conversation with Basics founder Patricia Wilkins. Before we even go any further, I want to play a video because I think people need to understand what it is that you do, and then you can put the icing on the cake to tell us exactly who you are.
Okay.
So we'll play the video.
I know I can be what I want to be. If I get that at it, I will be what I want to be.
I am beyond excited to be in Choko, Ghana with two of AWS ID&E's partners.
Basics International, in partnership with AWS, is bringing you the summer camp for kids within the Choko locality, where they are being trained to learn about AI so that they can get the needed skills and knowledge to prepare for the world of technology as it is happening all over the world.
We're being able to give children skills that can actually turn into occupations for them. It's giving them insight to careers that they never thought about. Many of them may say that they wanted to work on a computer, but through this camp program, they're now understanding the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence or cloud computing. So I think that they're walking away with bigger skills than we think they are. They're walking away with dreams.
So we have about 40 Amazonians on the ground here to deliver AWS native programming, FarmBot technology through our partner Tech by Tech, to facilitate COSI kits through our partner COSI out of the United States, as well as deliver a STEM lens for arts and crafts, reading, and games.
Basics has actually been my family. Like, they've been there for me, my education, financially. I met a lot of people from other countries, learned so many things from them. Basics helped me to complete my senior high school, and then gave me the opportunity to be on internship, like help the younger ones here to impact into them what I've also been impacted with. And then looking forward to go to college in Thailand, and I'm so happy I've gotten this opportunity to go out there to see how the real world looks like. Thank you to Basics for being part of my life.
I've learned a lot that will help me for my career.
Being able to be here for the past month has been just an eye-opener to what the possibilities are, not only within this area, not only within this country and this continent, but all across the world.
And there we have it. That was a 4-week summer camp. You may have seen us in the clip, but there you are. That was a 4-week summer camp sponsored by AWS, multi-partner, multi-org within AWS. And Pat's getting emotional, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's real.
Lovely.
It's on, even I'm getting emotional because it's the memories. There's nothing wrong with it. It's real. These are real lives. These are real people. And it's because of your vision. So actually, this is a beautiful segue, Pat. Tell us who you are.
You should have asked me to talk before watching the movie. Wow. Well, my name is Pat Wilkins. I'm originally from New York. I'm sure you can hear that, especially when I say New York. I've been living in Ghana for the past 22 years after I founded Basics International. It started out as a very small little mission, a task. I took a little break from my regular day in life. My background is in fashion. So I was working in New York City, and I just needed a break. I'm sure we can all understand that, right? Just wanting a break. And I actually went to Russia and lived in Russia for 1 year. And I left Russia and went to Ghana. And I started out just saying I wanted to help in any way that I could, if I can teach, if I can clean, if I can cook. And as soon as I hit Ghana, I saw children on the street that were not going to school. And that was contrary to what I had read, that children did go to school. And this is 22 years ago. And so I decided to just help a couple of children go to school. And I would call back home and ask my mother if she wanted to sponsor a child, a sister if she wanted to sponsor a child, a brother sponsor a child. And it just kept growing and growing. And before I knew it, I was starting an organization where we sponsored children. And that was my goal, to put kids in school that were not able to go to school for financial reasons or for social reasons. And social reasons or social hindrances, such as they were being forced to work, or their families couldn't afford school, or families didn't believe in going to school. So our organization made it possible for children to go to school by providing the financial means. Within 4 years, I would say, 2 to 3 years, I started realizing that it wasn't only financial, and it wasn't only the financial support that was needed, but we needed to give some social intervention programs involved. So after about 3 years, we moved from being a school sponsorship program to a social intervention program that provided ways for children to go to school, but ensured ways that they would stay in school, as we realized that school retention was a huge problem. So despite whatever financial support we were giving, kids were still not staying in school, so we needed to expand on our programs.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that vision. Whenever I hear you say the number 22, I think to myself, wow, 22 years. I look at these pictures, and we won't look at them for too long, or we'll all get teary-eyed, but 22 years, and half of the kids in this picture aren't 22, which means you've had, I'll use the word generations a bit loosely, but you've had cycles upon cycles upon cycles of families, of siblings, of cousins, of children come into your hands. And one of the things that I'll share is that they call her Auntie Pat, because it's family.
Yes.
You know, it's family. And so you're not just Patricia Wilkins. You're not, I don't even know if kids even know your last name.
I don't think so.
You're just Auntie Pat. So over 22 years, because there's a lot that's been done, and this is definitely going to be one of those this is your life moments. But these are just some of the statistics, and we won't read them all. And for those of you that do like to kind of read can read and listen at the same time, do have a scour. But what has the impact been over 22 years? And maybe you can pull out a few things that really come to mind.
Well, there's numbers right there on the board, but when we were watching the video, I got a little teary-eyed because I was looking at Grace, and you say, doing this for 22 years. The young lady that spoke about going to the university in Thailand, she started in the program at 7 years of age. And she was a child that was not afforded the opportunity to go to school until we met her. And we put her in school, and about 2 years ago, she completed high school. And again, she didn't have the means, the financial means to go into university. And she worked as an intern with our organization for the last 2 years, being a junior facilitator. But we were able to secure a scholarship for her, and she left to go to Thailand just a few weeks ago. And she'll be there studying for 4 years, getting her degree in education. So when you talk about impact, or you talk about 22 years, and I see Grace, who's a young woman now, who started out as a child, I think that's the impact. And I think I heard you speak about the girl child. And obviously, we are always speaking about the girl child, and that's really impactful to see girls who in a community that are expected and is seen every day being pregnant at 12 years old, that a girl like Grace and Grace alikes that are completing school and are entering junior high school and entering high school and not mothers. I think for me, that's the biggest impact that I see, that I love, yeah.
Changing Ghana, one life at a time. I keep going back to 22, and I know we've had many conversations, but it all started, like you said, with just sponsoring one child, and now it's hundreds, it's thousands, it's not just children and adults, it's parents, it's families.
Okay, yeah.
How did you get from day one, because it's always day one, but how did you get from day one to 22 years? How did you scale? What kind of things did you have to consider? Because I would love for folks in the audience who also want to learn to do this work. How do you build, and you build to last?
You build to last. One, I think you have to look at the communities that you're serving and not impose on what you want, but you have to meet the needs of the community. And so the communities that we serve are fishing communities, low-income communities, some of the poorest communities in Ghana. So we had to look at what would change, what would make change. And education is the only form of change that can happen that on a sustainable level. So through the years, we just continuously build on providing education. And one of the key things is quality education, because I think that even when we started, we were guilty at just providing any education. So we were just putting kids in school and not taking in consideration what kind of school. So then we realized that they were taking standardized tests, maybe in ICT. Meanwhile, they've never touched a computer because their schools never had electricity. So they were taking an examination based on what? And so we realized that we had to also evolve and say, okay, if we're gonna sponsor children, we have to look at the schools that we're putting them in. We need to make sure that they have electricity, that they have computers. If not, we had to support those schools to make sure that we can do that. So I think just listening to what the community really needs, and then just going from there, evolving.
Amazing, thank you. And yeah, having been there, I mean, we visited some of the schools, and just even seeing the relationship you had with the principals, and you were going in and you were checking and you were asking the questions, and you were making sure the kids had what they needed, and it was all being done in a due and an efficient manner. And I've seen your diligence on the ground, and it is awe-inspiring.
Thank you.
It's absolutely awe-inspiring. So thank you for sharing with everyone. So I'm just now also going to move a bit on, just to kind of go back a little bit to August, which was when we had the summer camp in Ghana. And Charlotte, I want to ask you a question, because this is, some of the support that AWS provided, but yes. How did you get involved?
Oh, wow. So I met Pat last year through our leadership, and I had a chance to sit down with her. And I had someone say, just, spend some time with Pat, learn about the organization, and then come back and tell us what you think. I said, sure, no problem. Met with Pat. Talked to her for quite a while, and her and I together built out a case study that we presented to our leadership team and said, this is the work that we believe we can do. The organization embodies the things that we in ID&E are looking to do, and specifically the global community activations team, right? We're looking to disrupt the social inequities, like not having clean water, not having access to internet or infrastructure, not or like having a place to live, right? Some of these things. So we talk about teaching and education, but a lot of times, if we can't even get to the root of the problem for a child to even show up, what's the point? Right? So after talking to her and after talking through it with our leadership team, we set to work to build out a very expansive partnership, and which I would say the icing on it, though, for me at least, was that we could bring our employees who also identified with being Ghanaian, but we had volunteers reach out from different parts of the world to say, hey, I'd like to sign up. Actually, I think there's a couple of people in here that have actually, or that were out there in Ghana with us as well. Yeah,
absolutely. That's amazing. And I remember being there on the ground and seeing how the children responded when some of the volunteers started speaking to them in their native tongue, which is Tree, and they were like, ah. And then they're like, I'm Ghanaian, and it was just a different level of connection, because it was like, you're somebody who's home to me. You're AWS and you're home, so it means that actually, if you came from here, and then you now work for AWS, actually maybe one day
it's relatable.
I could too, and it was
Absolutely.
so relatable.
Absolutely.
And it was amazing. So absolutely incredible.
So do you mind if I talk a bit about what we have here? Yes,
absolutely.
So this actually when we looked at the data, when you're on the ground and in the trenches, you really just don't know how much impact you actually have, right? But when you step back and you pull all the data together, you're like, wow, we were actually able to deliver 160 sessions, like Educate, AIML, Deep Racer, right? The kids loved it. The employees who were there to facilitate loved it, right? Working with your staff, it was a phenomenal experience. As well as we had, like I said, 34 employees that were able to join us. But total, I think we had 150 sessions. There was 180, I believe, hours. There we go. 180 volunteer hours over the course of 3 weeks. It was pretty phenomenal. Yeah. For the kids as well as for the employees, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And bringing in other nonprofit organizations who are nonprofits themselves, but were very interested in bringing what they had to offer to Ghana. And so that having that power of partnership between nonprofits and customers was actually pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Life-changing for sure.
Yeah, and just actually to buttress that point, we actually had quite a sizable donation from customers who also put into this work. And as we start to evolve into next year, we're already having conversation with customers who are saying, hey, I would love to get involved, I would love to support, I would love to help amplify, I would love to help scale as well. So this is really, as you said, that power of partnership.
Absolutely.
As well. So I'll move us on, and then I want to look at the future, right? Because we've looked at 22 years, and not to say that it's not enough, because it is, but actually there's more to go, right? And if anybody ever has the chance to speak to Pat, and one thing I will say is actually tomorrow there will be a Giving Tuesday takeover. Pat will have the booth, Shyla will be there, I'll be popping in and out. Please do spend some time, because if you ever speak to Pat, you'll see somebody who's achieved so much and there's still so much more to go. She's such a visionary. And 2023, Campa Cloa is a vision. Before I even answer the question, I'm gonna be honest, transparent moment. So we went in March to do a site visit. And Pat was talking about, we're gonna do this massive, sleepaway camp. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be. We rocked up there, nothing but a piece of land. Where's the camp? And she's all like, so over here we're gonna have. And I'm like, where's the camp? There's no roads yet. But Pat's a visionary, and she got the egg. And you'll tell them the acreage. And when you go there, it's incredible, because, like I said, we'll come back next year. We'll do a nice little video, and you'll see how it went from something as big as this, well, much bigger, to being what Pat said it would be. And that's the beauty, because Pat sees the vision and she gets it done. So, Pat, what does the future hold? Tell us about 2023 expansion.
Okay, so 2023 is about evolving. We said evolving. When we started out, Basics has been a road where we started out of a car, out of the garage, but we started out as a car, then we got a small little house, and then we put up the larger building that was in the video. And so if somebody asked me this 22 years ago, I wouldn't be able to say that would have been the vision of basics. So now we purchased 8 acres of land, and that's the land that you went to, and exactly what she said. She's like, what's going on? Why are we here? And I was like, this is where the camp is gonna be. And so we plan to start breaking ground in January on building Camp Akloa. And Camp Akloa, I grew up in New York City, raised by a single parent, and every year when school ended in June, a week later, if it was a week, we were shipped off to what we call Fresh Air Fun. And I don't know if anybody knows about sleepaway camps, and we were just shipped off, and we felt like we were being shipped off. But when we got there, we loved it. It was a place where children were free, and it was no cars running through the streets and no danger, and we learned to swim, and we learned to have friends, and we had sports, and we didn't have technology back then, but we didn't have phones, and I think we had Pac-Man. I don't know. That's it. Much older than you guys. So Pac-Man is downstairs too. I loved it. So Camp Akloa, and Akloa means village. And when we think about village, it means that it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village for a child to live, and that's what we want it to be, a village where children can engage in things that they should engage in as a child. But unfortunately, the children that we serve, they don't have that ability, because anytime they're out of school, their parents, their families, their communities are waiting for them to return to the labor force. Young girls are getting pregnant. So when schools are closed, we run our programs year-round. We don't shut down. My staff is tired, but we don't shut down, because we realize that when schools are closed, that's when we lose our children. So we have to engage them, and we engage them on our properties where we are now in the community, and we can stay open to 8 p.m. at night, but 8 p.m. is still not enough. So if we really want to see these children grow up and be children and go into high school and go to university, we need to engage them when they're on these long breaks. So we felt like, what a great place where they can go and have a full immersion into technology. Whereas our kids are growing up and waking up and grabbing our telephones and looking at it and know how to code at 5 years old, is because they have access to technology all the time. So we hope that Camp Akloa will give children in Choctaw and other communities like Choctaw the same kind of access.
Yeah, incredible. And I love it. And I see the vision, I get it.
You get it?
The vision. I've seen the land, I get the vision.
You saw where the swimming pool was?
I've seen the pool, I've seen where the football pitch is.
Okay.
I've seen it all. And it's exactly like you said, growing up, I didn't have camps. Camp's not common in the UK, actually. It wasn't really common. But I remember in the summer, your friends would come and knock for you like 7 o'clock in the morning. Hi, Miss Oki, can Tolly play out? And you'll all go out and play football, you roller skate, all of that. And it was the power of community as children. Just like you said, doing things that children do.
Children do.
Swimming, having fun, climbing trees.
Yeah, like you said, skateboarding. Yeah. In communities where there are no roads for them to skateboard.
Yeah, the car can barely go.
Yes,
the minivan can barely go down those roads, yeah. So it's absolutely incredible, and it's a beautiful vision. And then actually, as we hear the vision, then from our perspective, Shyla, from an AWS perspective, we've had conversations and things constantly evolve. We have to say to ourselves, how do we then support? And these are some of the ways that we can support, right? It's the dormitories, it's the commercial kitchen. Go and tell us some more.
So I think that, as Pat mentioned, having like a child, like being able to get outside and play is great, but we also live in a tech world, right? We're evolving where kids that are 18 months or 12 know how to work. Literally devices that adults don't know how to, to manage. And so we really want to make sure that we are partnering in a way that we're also able to help bridge that gap with the technical infrastructure, making sure that there are devices, but also making sure that we're providing programming and leaning in with our customers who also have different types of programming like Adobe, right? Who can come and provide that there's that access, exposure, and opportunity again, but in one place, right? So like state-of-the-art hub for interactive education, bringing about like the FarmBot that we brought out to Ghana, working with Tech by Tech to bring that at a larger scale out on the property so that you can do agricultural, the kids are learning how to code this bot that does, urban farming and everything that a person would do the robot does, but that's learning, but also giving back because they're able to grow your own produce, right?
That's right.
And feed the kids, and then teaching them about how all of these like pieces are integrated. So we want to be there as a partner to, of course, do all the fun, but then turn tech into fun for the kids as well.
Yeah. Definitely, and even for myself and from a customer perspective, these are the kind of things that, you know me, I love a list, but these are the kind of things that when I'm speaking to customers and I'm saying, this is where we are now, like, you know, we're doing Camp, we're doing Cambacoa, like these are some of the ways in which we can get involved, and customers are saying, okay, that's interesting, you know, and this is the conversation that we want to keep having.
Yeah.
And then actually, so before we kind of open up the floor for any questions, I'll also come back again, once again, Shaila, about kind of a call to action, and then I'll also do a customer call to action as well for customers in the room. But if you could speak a bit more from that community perspective.
Sure. So I think that for me, any company, if you are a person who has the ability to influence the work that your company is doing in this space, do it, right? Because it really does take us, like the value that a company has, we can bring quite a bit to nonprofit partners, right? We can bring strategy, we can bring volunteers, we can bring funding, we can bring programming, right? So look at and survey your organization. Talk to your employees, see what they're interested in, right? You would be surprised that your employees are wanting to get out in communities and do the work. And if you have buy-in, right, then you have more people who are going to want to show up. And so it is a win for all. It's a win for the company, it's a win for your employees, it's a win for the nonprofit partners, and it's a win for the communities that they're serving. Ultimately, that's why we're doing this work, to change the future of tech globally.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my perspective, as once again, from that customer perspective, a quick call to action for the customers in the room. Most organizations of any scale have some kind of outreach program. You might call it a CSR, so that corporate social responsibility. You might have a Tech for Good program. You might even be a bigger organization who has a foundation. And one of the things that I would love to talk to you all about is actually where or if there is an alignment. Like Shaila mentioned, programming, funding, volunteers. I would love for us, and hashtag no pressure, Shaila, but I would love for us to do joint cohorts of volunteers, where we have customer volunteers coming out with AWS volunteers and really scaling this work, because we believe in this. You've seen it, you've heard it, and I'm pretty sure we've made believers out of all of you. This is work that is making a difference. And I would love for all of you to join us on that journey as well. Pat, is there anything you also want to add?
No.
Sometimes honesty is the best policy. Yeah, I love that. So in that case, this actually brings us to the end of our talking.